Okay, well, I think we can start. It seems that most people have joined. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the seventh webinar of the Circular Cities Declaration webinar series. This afternoon, we're going to focus on circular business models and the role of local authorities in promoting these. It's a fairly obvious truism to say that the transition to a circular economy is requiring us to find new ways of doing business based around the shortening, the narrowing, and the closing of material loops. And these are ways of doing business that emphasize prolonging product lifetimes, promoting the sharing, repurposing, and reuse of products and spaces, ways of doing business that promote the substitution of virgin raw materials with secondary materials, for example. But of course, these new ways of doing business need fundamentally to be based on viable underlying business models. And of course, factors that influence the viability of these business models are clearly extremely varied, and amongst the most important of these are typically outside of the responsibility of local and regional government, talking obviously about taxation systems, but also regulations or the lack of around waste disposal, resource consumption, pollution, etc. And yet still there are measures, of course, that local and regional governments can take, and which, although these may not be able to fundamentally reconfigure the framework within which businesses are operating and competing, they potentially are able to do enough to push them over the line into viability. And that's what we want to be discussing here today. So what can local and regional governments do to promote circular business models? Before we kick off, just a few housekeeping rules for the webinar. This will be familiar to most who've joined a CCD webinar before. We like the participants to put not only who they are in their name, but also which organization they belong to. So you can change that within the Zoom functions. Hopefully you can work out how to do this. I need to also mention that the webinar is being recorded. You will see that all previous CCD webinars are put up on the CCD website, and that will be the case today as well. Please do keep yourself muted while others are speaking. And if you have any questions that you want to ask, please put those in the chat. We have a very tight schedule today, so the extent to which all of those can be answered within the webinar, I don't know, but we will, of course, try to get back to any that we don't reach after as well. Okay, we also have Chiara available for any technical support issues. You have an email address there, or you can write to hosts in the chat. And finally, there is an option in Zoom for showing captions in English. So for those for whom I'm speaking too quickly, for example, this might help. You have that function within Zoom. Okay, quick run through of the agenda. We have primarily 3 blocks here. First of those is going to be from 3 of our support partners, from EMF, from the EIB, and from ReLondon, giving us introductory presentations about circular business models. And then we'll hear, after a short break, we'll hear from some of our signatories, from Genoa, from Porto, and from Mechelen, about what they're doing to try to support circular business models in their cities. Following this, we'll then have the opportunity to split up into 3 different breakout rooms to have a more detailed discussion on the 3 topics, which we'll come back to later. And then we'll come back together just before the end of the event at about 3:20 to have a quick wrap up and look at future activities. Okay, just quickly on the declaration itself, before we start with the webinar proper. We are now up to 80 signatories, spreading across 22 countries all across Europe. And within that, at a very rough estimate, we are covering a population of approximately 32 million with the signatures that we have. Here's a quick list. The ones that are highlighted in yellow have joined recently, which includes Liège in Belgium, it includes Haar in Germany, Fingal County in Ireland, Bordeaux in northern Norway, Matosinhos in Portugal, and the London Borough of Newham, in the United Kingdom. And so, as you can see, we're really very well spread across Europe in terms of geography, but also in terms of type of city, which is included within the signatory group. A quick update on one of the most important ongoing activities that we have, and this is the preparation of the annual CCD report for 2023. Our current planned publication date for that is February 2024, but we will, of course, keep everybody up to date with this. We've very happily received reports from 52 signatories about what they've been doing over the last year, which is going to feed into this report. Quick reminder of what the content of this is. We have deep dive sections within this year's report looking specifically at monitoring and indicators on the one hand, and at regenerating nature on the other. Together with this, we'll have the typical overview of the main trends in circular economy cities, as we did last year, the main challenges which are being faced by cities, and also, of course, an overview, a page each on the interventions that each of the signatories have reported to us. So I hope everybody's looking forward to that. And as I say, we'll keep you updated with the publishing date nearer the time. Okay, so my computer's not working. Right, before we kick off the presentations, we thought we'd give everybody a chance to get involved as well. So I think everybody post-COVID is fairly familiar with Mentimeter. I would invite you all to either use the QR code on the screen or go directly to menti.com and type in the code that appears here. And there you will find a number of questions related to today's webinar. So I'll leave that up for a couple of seconds, and then Chiara, you can take over and share your screen for this part.
Sorry, could you just put that code back up again for the Mentimeter, please?
Yeah, well done. I've put the code in the chat, so you should be able to use it there. Okay, so yes, first question here. What are your expectations for today's webinar? And I can see we've already got a number of responses here. So inspiring ideas, sharing learning and inspiration. Inspiration for what we can do in Copenhagen, learning from what others are doing. Feedback and exchange on partnering at the local levels to go from pilots to a systemic level, absolutely. Sharing and learning, collecting ideas, how we as a municipality can help. Yes, very good. So as is fitting for a circular economy webinar, a lot of the focus is on sharing, of course. Very good. Okay. Shall we move on to the next question, Chiara? All right, here we have a multiple choice question. What do you think are the primary obstacles for hindering local businesses from transitioning or innovating in the realm of circular practice? So what is blocking these circular business models, would you say? And there's a number of options at the bottom of the screen here, which you can select. And we'll tell you which is the right answer at the end. No, of course, there's no right or wrong answers with this. And we're seeing some very clear winners here. So a lack of financial resources and regulatory and policy barriers blocking this, but also fragmented collaboration, limited awareness and understanding, and a resistance to change. But certainly the lack of financial resources and the regulatory and policy barriers are clearly ahead in this case. Okay, Alessandra, should we move on? So, how do you support, or would you like to support, the adoption of circular business models within your city or region? So this is focused on what levers available to us. And there's a number of options again spread across the bottom of the screen here. And several of these we will hopefully hear about over the course of the webinar this afternoon. Okay, very good. So again, two front runners here, which I think are probably expected. Partnership creation on the one hand and training programs and capacity building on the other, but also the provision of direct financial support and active political support are getting support here as well. Okay, so as mentioned, hopefully we'll hear some about these over the course of the next 2 hours. Okay, Kieran, let's we have one final slide, I believe. So now this is about how potentially the CCD or CCD signatories or support partners could help you. What are the specific areas where you could benefit from assistance to better support your local businesses? Very good. Okay, so quite a spread of answers here, but again, one very clear front runner, learning about international best practices, which is exactly what we're hoping to do here, but also networking and collaboration, financial support and funding, of course, but then capacity building and training, and also the development of communication strategies. So this is very helpful for us. Of course, it's a bit unfair to give only one possible answer in a question such as this. I imagine it's several of the answers in reality. But in any case, nice to get a reflection on this. So thanks very much for participating. Chiara, I think we're finished there. So shall I start sharing my screen again? Very good. Okay, so we shall now move on to our first block of presentations. And as mentioned here, we're going to hear from several of our support partners. We have Josh Newton speaking from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, followed by Nathalie Binet from European Investment Bank, and then finally Lamia Spiti from ReLondon. We'll all be presenting different aspects of this type of support. So first off, Josh, I will pass across to you, and you have precisely 10 minutes from now.
10 minutes TikTok. Thanks, Simon. Could I share screen, please? Okay. Hello all.
Yep.
Thank you for having me today. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces. I am from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. We are a network, a global network of around 3,000 organizations of all different sorts that work across the system. So some of the world's largest businesses that you can see there in our strategic partner tag, as well as philanthropists, innovators, institutions, and cities, and universities. And there's probably other organizations that don't fill in there. Our mission is to develop and promote an idea of a circular economy. And within that, we have expertise and programs on a range of different thematic areas, value chains, as well as audiences. So we engage with governments on policy. We support education and learning, and businesses, which are the largest part of our network, are also a main audience. So through that, we have lots of insights on circular business models. So I will spend the next 8 minutes probably introducing you to some of those circular business model archetypes, and then setting out some examples that we're aware of how cities are supporting those circular business models. And these are our 3 principles when we talk about a circular economy. It's always helpful to go back to them, but they're 3 principles, all of which are driven by design, which highlights the fact that we all have a role to play in how we support them. They are eliminating waste and pollution, circulating products and materials at the highest value for as long as possible, and regenerating nature. So when we think about circular business models at the foundation, in collaboration with our big network, we have worked on devising 3 broad archetypes of circular business models. I know we've already been on Menti this morning, but I wanted to invite you all to go into the chat and add a circular business that you're aware of that supports or aligns to one of these 3 archetypes. So the first sort of business model that we want to support is organizations that help retain product ownership, so that they only give access to the product for a short period of time, and therefore retain responsibility for managing that product once the user has used it. Sorts of business models that fit in that are product as a service, subscription, lease, and rental. Just a reminder, I can't see the chat, so I don't know if anyone is going to put anything in the chat, but this is a bit of a test to see how aware or familiar or how much you use circular business models yourselves already. The second archetype business is businesses that extend the life of products. So often products are used for a single point, for a single use, or for a very short period of time before they're thrown away. So businesses that extend the life of products include things like refurbishment, repurposing, repair, but also sharing. So maximizing the utility of goods and services. I can see some things coming in the chat, so I'll come to that in a second. And then the final archetype example of circular business models are circular supplies. So that's going back to that design stage that I mentioned very briefly at the start, and thinking about where we source, I guess, the feedstock or the ingredients or the different components that go into a product, and making sure that when we design these products, that those individual components can then be pulled apart and used again and again for as long as possible. And so business models that evolve around circular supplies are things like upcycling, designing for closed loops, regeneratively sourcing raw materials. When we need virgin materials, hopefully they're regeneratively sourced. And then finally, recovering resource from waste streams. So that's using byproducts and things like that. I will briefly look into the chat to see if we've got some examples. Club Zero, yes, Lamia. So far as a service, yes. Imar has put lighting. So we all have a good sense of some of these good examples. And many of these are actually in our network, which is nice to see. I will move to the next one. So you can see here in that badly covered bar is some examples of circular business models. So within retained product ownership, there's organizations like Signify that provide lighting as a service, which I think one of you mentioned. And then there's also Homey, which provides household appliances on subscription. So rather than the need to buy a washing machine, you can actually access that washing machine at home and pay a subscription fee where you pay per use rather than have it. In product life extension, we have brands like Philips and Fairphone, brands that are starting to create products on a more modular basis. So providing a service of that product, but actually helping them repair and extend the life of that product by kind of R&Ding and research and developing products and refining them over time, which means that you can have a phone for 5 years, then 1 year, or you can have a scanner at a hospital that lasts for 20 years rather than 5 years. And then finally, circular suppliers are examples like Niaga, which is a materials company for bulky items that can then be turned back into the same items. So they've developed textiles and material components for things like mattresses, products that are hard to recycle at the end of life. And then, of course, Nopla, which won the Earthshot Prize recently for plastics replacement that's based from seaweed. So removing the need for fossil fuel-based inputs entirely and using seaweed, which ultimately breaks down back into nature after a few weeks. I probably only have about 3 minutes left, so I will crack on quickly. But ultimately, I think why these circular business models are really important is because they help internalize the externalities of a linear economy. So from waste, we turn into resources and feedstock. Economic losses that we have in our linear economy, we turn into economic development opportunities. In the linear economy, where there are price risks and supply chain volatility linked to long globalized supply chains, we build more resilience and confidence on prices that keep prices more stable in local economies. And then finally, circular economy is also a key driver and enabler of tackling climate and nature solutions. Linked to the Menti that we shared earlier, Through our work with startups and innovators, we've identified some 4 common barriers to circular business models, which are really important to think about. I realize I have only so much time. So these are profitability. So at the end of the day, it costs more to run a circular business when we have a linear economy and linear rules and regulation. Marketing, there's a need to engage customers in a different way. At the moment, they're used to purchasing things on a one-off basis, and so need to be supported and encouraged and empowered to try these circular business models. The third is traceability. So sourcing a lot of these products and circular business models are still really hard because we don't have the data, and traceability is from these long global supply chains is hard. And then finally, we're still measuring business purely on profits and GDP. And until we change the KPIs to reflect bigger outcomes, societal outcomes, environmental outcomes, circular business models will still be having to compete in an uneven playing field with linear business models. So there are lots of ways that cities can support businesses. I won't go into the examples, but ultimately these are 4 of the broad brackets. So what we see from cities around the world is that the first good step is to map the ecosystem. Another really good way is to lean in hard and support businesses in your cities to kind of trial or test circular business models alongside their existing linear ones, or support innovation with purely circular business models. The third is innovative procurement approaches. So we'll hear from Porto later. They can maybe talk about Reboot briefly. And then there are also other ways. So there's financial and non-financial support, activation campaigns, which we have a really great example of, as well as innovation challenges, which I saw Copenhagen are on the course, so can also refer to that. I won't go into detail, but you have these slides afterwards that have some really good examples. I will have 1 more minute where I basically say that cities can use multiple levers ultimately to help tackle those barriers to circular economy scaling. We would say that promoting circular business models through your procurement is probably one of the major unlocks, in that in some countries, GDP, around 30% of GDP can be public procurement. So actually making sure that you spend your money to invest in circular business models directly is probably one of the highest impact things. That said, while the rules of the game remain uneven, an important role for cities is to also advocate for fairer regulatory frameworks to central government, so that we can ultimately help these businesses by making the economics work better for everyone. I will end on simply saying that we have a circular startup index at the foundation, where if you have a circular business in your city that has the potential to scale, we want to add it to our index, which brings together all the innovators we know in the world alongside, and that's basically a register to support financial organizations, investors, and cities as well, other people that are looking to procure services, so they can find the solutions they need. We know that there are a lot of the solutions out there already. We just need to help scale them. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Josh. And almost exactly on time with that as well. So thanks for this. I should have mentioned, of course, that we are collecting all of the comments in the chat, and those will go into our overview document, where we will also store any resources that are mentioned today. So any guidance, any examples like those that Josh just presented will all be there in this overview document that everybody will have access to. And that will, of course, include these interesting examples of businesses that Josh has presented there. And I can see there's also a question in there, but I think we're going to need to park that for the time being and make sure that we have time to get through all of the presentations as a first step. Okay, but then anyway, thanks a lot, Josh. And we'll pass across now directly to Natalie from the EIB. So Natalie, are you able to share your screen? And I'm going to put a little clock symbol up 2 minutes before the end of the presentation. Hopefully everyone can see that, but a little experiment. So over to you, Natalie.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you for being there. So I will talk today about the type of financing that the European Investment Bank can propose to finance circular economy projects, with a particular focus on cities. So first, a short outline of who we are. So we are the Bank of the European Union. The EU member states are our shareholders. We are AAA rated, and therefore we have an advantageous cost of funding that we pass on to our clients. We are the world's largest multilateral institution, a leader in green finance with also ambitious targets. More than 50% of our financing is dedicated to green projects, and we aim to mobilize 1 trillion of financing in this decade to finance the green transition. We have been also a pioneer in green bonds. The group, the EIB group, consists of the EIB and the EIF. I will mainly focus on the EIB, but the EIF is also an important stakeholder. It's our subsidiary that is specialized in risk finance for SMEs, and that can be quite relevant also in the field of circular economy. We are the lending arm of the European Union, and therefore we foster EU priorities, in particular innovation, digital and human capital, sustainable energy and natural resources, sustainable cities and region, and also SMEs and mid-caps. And you can see that all of them are quite relevant actually for the circular economy. I will not go very deep in the different business models, circular business models, because that has already been discussed in the previous presentation. But as you know, there are two different types of projects: the traditional circular economy project that are more traditional investment that close loops, for instance, in the terms in waste or new flow of new material streams, new technologies. And these ones, they are appraised more or less in the same way as standard types of project. And for that, we have our usual EIB toolbox that is available. And then there are circular business models that are more focused on sharing and leasing, and with specific challenges, notably the fact that they rely heavily on bespoke contracts and the creditworthiness of their clients, that they also lead to an expanded balance sheet with also longer payback period than usual types of project, and that also the residual value and the tracking of the asset is also a challenge. And for that, I mean, because they entail some kind of higher risk, it's a good rationale to go for slightly different types of instruments, such as guarantees or venture debt or equity. Focusing more on cities. The cities, they are the cradle for circular economy. Why? Because first, they are able to implement projects directly. And there we can think of waste and water types of project, building, mobility, and so on. But they also have a role to foster circular economy through their financial support, through the coordination that they can provide in building an ecosystem by financing hubs, for instance. But also a very important aspect that has already been underlined before is the power of circular public procurement. That is very important. Public procurement consists of 15% actually of all the procurement that is all goods procured, so it's quite significant. And also, I mean, there is a way, a possibility there to support this circular business model because cities are generally credit-worthy institution, and they have this role also to foster these new business models thanks to their creditworthiness. We at the EIB are able to finance both the public sector directly through our lending, but also the private sector, either directly or indirectly for smaller ventures. We will come to that. We are also able to provide on both sides advisory services free of charge. I will go very quickly there, but I just wanted to highlight at which stages we are able to assist promoters. For the EIF, they can start at startup level, let's say with venture capital by investing into funds, but we at the EIB are mainly focusing on scale-up, growth and mature enterprises. Our offering, so how do we finance projects? First, we are able to provide direct financing to projects. We finance generally a project up to 50% of a project cost, so we are not able to finance the whole. We finance up to 50% with a minimum ticket size of 25 million for our standard lending, and for our higher impact venture debt product with a minimum ticket size of 15 million, which is quite significant. So I will move in the next slide on our intermediated lending that cater for smaller projects. What is a project? It's actually an investment program, so not a single project, but it can be really an investment program comprising several ones over 3 to 4 years. It includes both CAPEX and RDI costs. I will zoom on two of our main products that I believe can be quite interesting in this forum. Further framework loans. These are committed credit lines that can be drawn up to finance different types of projects, and it's a very flexible instrument because not all the projects need to be known upfront. So we are really able to commit this credit line and then to allocate the funds to different sub-projects that can be identified and appraised at a later stage. Another interesting instrument is our venture debt instrument that is more focused on the private sector, and that is catering for higher impact and for riskier ventures. It's a quasi-equity type of risk at demonstration or commercial stage that is not dilutive and that is priced generally with profit participation, but that is quite interesting because it really is a very high risk type of instrument. To cater for smaller projects that wouldn't reach this minimum ticket size that we propose also intermediated financing that through financial intermediaries such as commercial banks or national promotional banks or regional institutions. They entail loans, guarantees, but also blended financial instrument that we can put in place with national promotional banks, and also on the side of EIF, the participation in equity funds. What is EIB bringing through its financing? Well, first I was alluding to that, but it's attractive pricing thanks to our advantageous cost of funding, but also, and that's quite important here, long tenors, knowing that the payback period of such investment is generally quite long. It's very important to have a matching maturity of the loan. We are also providing free of charge project support and advisory. I will revert to that later. We also provide blended finance, and our funds are compatible with EU funds, which is very important to know. Altogether, it can cover up to 90% of the project cost in cohesion areas and up to 70% of the project cost outside of cohesion areas. And finally, another interesting point is that we have developed a number of green products, in particular green loan, that have a signaling effect and where the EIB can provide a quality stamp on the project that are financed. Very shortly, these are the main sector that we have financed, and it's interesting to see that the waste and water, which are a large part of circular economy, represent only 30% of our financing, and that actually we are also very much involved in industry and services, agroforestry and bioeconomy, and that we can also see some relatively untapped with some untapped sectors such as urban development and buildings and mobility, and we believe that there is a lot to be done there. To summarize a little bit what we have done and how we have been operating so far, we are covering the public sector, corporates, and also this new business model. For the public sector, we've been focusing mainly on waste and water reuse and recycling projects, but we have also more and more promising sectors, including building and mobility, as well as shared public and private infrastructure. And for that, we use mainly framework loans. To support corporate, we are providing finance mainly to RDI and innovative solution production facilities, including bio-circularity elements, circular design and production, circular value recovery, circular support, circular use being mainly new business models. Finally, we have this possibility to support new business models, which so far have been done mainly through intermediated lending and guarantees. I would like to highlight again the fact that we are able to provide advisory free of charge for our clients. And in particular, I would like to focus on the Circular City Center that is part of our EIB advisory, and that is really focused on delivering advisory services for the cities that want to enter into this circular transition. But we also have other types of advisory that are available both to the private sector, to corporates, and also to financial institutions and national promotional banks to increase the share, notably of circular economy projects or other green projects. So the Circular City Center has two very interesting work streams. One to prepare, so one that is more upstream advisory to prepare circular economy strategies or build a circular economy project pipeline on the level of the city. So with the engagement with the EIB experts and also consultants, but also a more hands-on and downstream type of advisory assignment that is really on supporting circular project preparation. One example of a city that has made use of our advisory services is Leuven. So we have supported them in identifying and preparing a circular project, and now we are in discussion on possible financing for this project. An interesting point is that they also include the financing of circular building projects through also material banks and repurposing of buildings, which differs from what we have mainly done so far, meaning waste and water project. Very quickly, I have three examples of what we have done. One with the public sector, a framework loan with the city of Pescara in Italy. It's an interesting example because there are two components here. One that is focused on circular economy and one that is focused on energy efficiency. And not all of the sub-projects were known at the time when it was signed. They were further allocated over a period of 5 years. Another interesting example is WeKnow. So that was a venture debt type of instrument that was supporting waste prevention. So it's a circular support type of product because it's really an IT tool that enable the sustainable management of food and avoiding waste. So this was also something that we financed. And finally, on the recycled side, so the recycled feedstock, we have also financed Carbios for the biorecycling demo plant in France through also our venture debt product. So this comes to with this come to the end of my presentation. I thank you for your attention.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Natalie. There's also a question in the chat there, but maybe you can ask that directly, answer that directly in the chat, and we will share information, the presentations, plus the links that you put in the website, of course, in our overview as well. But thanks very much for the overview of the kind of support that EIB can provide, and some interesting concrete examples of what you're doing with cities and companies across Europe. And for our final support partner presentation, we're going to jump from what was considered, according to our Mentimeter poll, as one of the biggest challenges, i.e. financing, to hopefully one of the biggest areas of potential support that we can provide, and that's in terms of partnership and capacity building. So we're finally going to pass across to Lamia from ReLondon. Lamia, if you're with us,
yeah.
I invite you to share your screen now as well.
Great, thank you very much. Let me start sharing. Hopefully you can see that.
We can, yes.
Great, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. So my name is Lamia. I'm from ReLondon, and what I want to do over the next 10 minutes or so is share the example of London, the work that we've been doing around delivering business support, in particular to small businesses, to help the city bring to life the circular economy locally. And the role that I play in ReLondon is to lead our business support activities. For those of you less familiar with us as an organization, so we're a partnership between the Mayor of London and the boroughs of London, and our role is to drive circular economy activity in London. We do that in a range of different ways. So we work directly with the boroughs, the municipalities locally, as well as running citizen-facing campaigns to kind of build awareness around different forms of consumption. But importantly, we also work directly with businesses to transform the way that they operate, to create, in essence, the better choices for citizens and local businesses, to give them options to consume differently as individuals and businesses. So we focus on 5 particular materials, and this was informed by research that we did back in 2007, understanding where are the biggest levers that the city can pull on to drive carbon reduction emissions through circular economy. So these were the materials that had, were creating the biggest problems in London, but also had the greatest potential, therefore, to create impact. And what we found is if we had better choices around those materials, we would be able to have an environmental benefit. So, for example, if Londoners swapped clothing, so 12 purchases of clothing to secondhand items, we could reduce fashion-related emissions down by 30%. Similarly with food, if we could have the amount of food lost and wasted, then we could achieve 10% emissions reduction. So there's clear environmental motivation for creating better circular choices locally. It's also an economic opportunity. So a report that we found was that London's circular economy already contributes significantly to the local economy, but has the potential to grow to a total of 24 billion by 2030 if we can bring to life the vision of the Mayor of London around the circular economy. So those are some of the motivations for why we're exploring these better choices. But one of the things that we found is we can't create those better choices in London without involving business, and in particular without involving small businesses in London. And there's a number of reasons why that is. Firstly, the majority of businesses in London are actually small or medium-sized, so they need to be part of the transition. They typically will generate more waste than households as a whole, so have an important opportunity to influence how waste is generated or repurposed. In terms of the economic benefits as well, they are responsible or contribute to a lot of employment, and this is UK-wide, not just in London. But also in terms of the potential for them to create these better choices, because they're smaller and maybe closer to their customers, they might be able to quickly respond, quickly create different types of business models, and also often they're embedded in a local community, so can create sort of ripple effects and influence how the community consumes. So these are all the kind of benefits that we wanted to leverage by engaging small businesses in the transition. So that explains a little bit why in 2017 we set up the Business Transformation Program, which is a business support program in London dedicated to the circular economy. We've already supported over 450 businesses so far. And we work with 2 audiences of small business. So we work with the startups, the kind of disruptors who are launching circular business models like Winnow, like the ones that we were mentioning earlier, Josh, and those were the kinds of ones that we started with in particular in the early days of the program. But increasingly as well, we are working with what we're calling everyday businesses. So these are your cafes, your corner shops, basically businesses that currently are operating in a linear manner, and helping them to trial circular economy practices and understand how these are actually a really important commercial opportunity for them. And the role that we try to play, as well as upskilling and building capacity in these businesses, is to capture and then disseminate the learnings, and not just the learnings in terms of the environmental benefits of implementing these business models, but also the economic or social benefits, and how these can sort of drive kind of better cities. So in terms of what that means in practice, what we do in the business support is we combine different types of services to help small businesses both adopt and scale circular business models. And they basically fall under these 4 categories, and we do sort of permutations or combinations of them in delivery. And the reason why we've landed on these 4 types of services is we found in surveying businesses that this is what they need help with. So we have an in-house team of advisors who deliver advice and training directly to businesses to help them understand how to design those business models in a way that are both environmentally friendly, but also viable and also attractive for customers, kind of picking on the themes of the 2 previous presenters. And that's because we actually surveyed the businesses we worked with, and 80% of them are saying that, you know, product design and thinking about them is a challenge for them. We also offer grant funding. It's not our own grant money, but usually working in partnership with municipalities, organizations. And the idea is to release funding to de-risk the piloting and trying and experimentation around circular business models. And that's also because we already heard it, funding is a bit of an issue for businesses, both for startups who are launching this. Even though London is a leader in clean tech financing, it's only 10 to 20% of investment, but also for everyday businesses. And then making sure they have the networks that they can access to grow. So I wanted to give you an example of a partnership, a work that we did with Islington Council, which is one of the municipalities in London. We worked with them to release funding and non-financial support to small businesses, specifically 23 of them in their borough. And what was interesting is this was driven by the economic development team. So they were really interested in the idea of the circular economy as a way to drive growth, drive job opportunities, as well as change behaviors of their local residents. And so we invited businesses to apply for grant funding to run pilots locally. And as a result of that, we're able to generate both economic benefits in terms of jobs, but also waste reduction. And what we found is that half of the businesses that we supported were already startups launching circular products and services, but the other half were new to the circular economy, so we're trialing. And that's, for example, the photograph you see. It was a IT shop that trialed introduction of repair into their shop to drive customer retention and repeat buyers. And generally, we're finding the trend is businesses are seeing commercial benefits as well from these in a relatively short time frame, so within 6 months. Another example of how a municipality has kind of worked and engaged with small business to drive change is a project we did in West London with the borough of Hounslow. And the concept here was to create a circular neighborhood. So it's basically inviting lots of circular choices in a concentrated area and seeing how that changes behavior and waste profile locally. And Hounslow partnered with a number of business partners, so small businesses, 18 in total, that they invited to run projects in the local area in a very, very small concentrated geographic area to help kind of reduce levels of waste, increase awareness around reuse, repair, sharing, etc. And what was really interesting here, it was inviting businesses to also partner with local community groups and institutions such as schools or places of worship. So it's really thinking about the community through a range of different lenses and thinking about the role businesses can play to build capacity. And here there's a bit of support that we gave businesses in terms of thinking about how they tailor and tweak the pilots they had, but a lot of the support here was also making sure they got the right connections. So making sure they could access the schools in the right time, and also the role of the municipality in telling a coordinated story of when you see all these interventions together, and the sum being more than, or I guess the total being more than the sum of its parts, because you're able to tell a story and a narrative about all the interventions. So those are a couple of ideas I wanted to throw in your direction, and happy to pick up the conversation separately. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Lamia. And well within time, in fact, we're ahead of schedule, interestingly, which means we can actually pick up already one of the questions which is put into the chat. Yuli, I don't know whether you want to raise the question directly.
I was wondering, Lamia, how do you get a grasp on the wide variety of circular initiatives that pop up in a large city such as London? How do you drag them to come to you? Because it's not because you already have a funding stream or a capacity building program and so on that everybody knows about it. So I was wondering, how do you get out?
Yeah. Is that in terms of the small businesses or in terms of the municipalities or the boroughs?
The small businesses, I mean.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So as part of the team, we're split in the team. We have dedicated people who are around engagement, business engagement. And what we found has worked really well in driving interest is forming partnerships with local business hubs. So it's something that we've built up over time, but is now bearing fruit. We sort of work with already groups of businesses, either that are community focused or geographically focused or thematically focused. You'll have sort of business networks, membership groups, those kinds of things. So we'll connect with them and advertise our services through their channels. And then the other thing that works really well is word of mouth, actually, especially when you're very focused about the nature of the support you offer, because we're focused on circular economy. We find that circular businesses are speaking to each other all the time and finding each other, creating networks, informal networks with each other. So that is paying off. So now we found that most of our businesses coming to us are actually through word of mouth, and then a minority is because of the direct engagement that we do. But that's because we've been doing it for a while. In the beginning, it was the other way around.
Great, thanks, Lamia. And I noticed in your presentation you have links to case studies, for example, where presumably you're outlining in more detail exactly what you did within these individual cases. And I think they can prove really inspiring and interesting examples for others to follow there, to pick up on some of the great work that ReLondon is doing. Okay. Great. So thanks very much for that. We're going to stop here for a very short comfort break. So I would invite everybody to come back at 2:30 on the dot, where we will pass across to some experiences from the signatories and how they are supporting business models. So speak to you all very shortly. Great. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So let's move on to our second block of presentations. I hope everyone has managed to rejoin us for this. And here we're going to hear from our signatories about different activities that they have been doing to promote circular business models in their areas. We will hear from Claudia Pinna from the city of Genoa, in part about looking at providing physical space to promote collaboration. Secondly, we will then hear from Manuel Semedo from the city of Porto, looking specifically at financial incentives and political support. And finally, we want to hear from Yuli Popper from the city of Mechelen, focusing there on partnering and capacity building at the local level. And these three topics will then be mirrored in the breakout sessions that we have following the presentations. So first of all, I would propose passing across to Claudia, if you are with us, and you can share your screen directly.
Hello. Nice to meet you, everyone. I'm here replacing Stefania, that is very sad not to be here, but she is in business travel. And now I'm sharing my screen. Can you see it?
It's just coming up. Yes, we can now see it, but we have it in presenter mode.
Yeah, that's good.
That's it, yes.
Okay, so I want to present you our project that is called Genova Circular City, and it's actually made with this nice logo that is tailor-made for the project by the city. And first of all, the project. Genova has begun a process of comparing the project with using the Lighthouse City framework, that is a pillar together with the Genoa 2050 action plan and the pillar of the 2030 that is reflecting the action and customizing to its own measurement tool using 160 indicators that is actually at a urban level. It's very important because the Lighthouse City Framework is measuring 12 large Italian cities that was inspired by the opportunities to offered by the investment in urban resilience and also the progressive development towards a prosperous economy, and is trying to offer a high standard of quality of life for all the people who are choosing the city, either is a citizen or a visitors or whatever, is very, very welcome to be and to live in the city of Genoa. These areas are the expression of a transversal system and of urban strategies, and the dialogue through these elements gives the measurement and evaluation that usually all the same indicators allow for a broader orientation of actions towards a sustainable urban economy. These are a couple of words just to introduce our project. So the project pursued the following objectives that are also obviously shared by the European network. Above all, to improve the cycle of waste management by choosing loop with prevention and upcycling solution, and then targeting the sustainable and resilient city through livable processes and above all low emission regenerative solution with impacts of healthiness for the urban environment. Re-engineering the collection scheme and encouraging reuse on a suburban scale, incentivize and maximize bioeconomy solution, enable sustainable production processes and marketing of products and services, and then strengthen the delivery system of proximity city services, as for example, social marketing in the context of combating obviously food waste and food insecurity, and in this period is very, very important because of the economic crisis, and fostering sustainable short supply chain, territorial connection, reinforcing processing and sharing raw materials just for the community, and the active participation just to combat the marginalization. Into deep of our project, there is the circular hub and the circular desk that are two methods that has been created from the city of Genova to design and implement the opening of a more circular and participative think tank and hub that will realize, starting from circular economy strategies, with a process of being approved, that is being approved within the year, an information platform that want to make the population aware of the virtuous behavior that has to be adopted, including the calculation of saved emission that will be available online. And then a circular desk for technical systems and implementation of circular solution in the blue and the green economy, bioeconomy, agri-food, and all related with textile and energy and fisheries, everything that could be could support the small and medium enterprises to create virtuous behaviors. And then the circular hub want to do meetings and events that includes the food supply chain, analyzed from a circular economic perspective, and a seed contest to create quality menus, for example, for food in hotel school, with zero waste of food resources and material, and reduce consumption and of plastic and various other non-recyclable materials. This circular hub will also realize a circular transformation services in different sectors to trigger innovation processes, such, for example, matching supplies and demand for circular application in the environment and mobility, waste, food, energy, and other sectors. And it will also realize a training on applicable digital technologies to support circular economy actions, and that the implementation of an initial orientation called designing innovative experimentation services. It's also it also realize innovative processes to strengthen the social market realities and present in the area by making them circular district, a very marketplace, a circuit for supplying products from short and sustainable supply chains, and for raising neighborhood awareness of responsible consumption, also through other new functions that you can really read later. I don't want to annoy you by everything. More into deep in the circular hub, I want you to stress out that it will also promote in connection with the activities, supporting the social market network and the development of neighbor scale circular community, acting through formal cooperation factor with co-design meetings and the co-creation of small application in the mobility waste cycle for the food insecurity, bioeconomy in energy sector, and that's it. This is aimed at extending the life cycle of products. It will also utilize spaces on the ground floor of the Genoa Blue District that is an in-house enterprise of the municipality of Genova, and it is the physical space of the circular hub, and it's managed by the job center, and it's also taking advantage of sustainability-oriented ecosystem that qualifies and demonstrates symbolic significance that is attributed by the energetically rehabilitated premises in the environmental sustainability project linked to the blue economy. I wanted to show you this. That was actually a pilot project that was distracted during the collapsing of the bridge, the Ponte Morandi Bridge in 2018, and what is very, very true, that is nothing is thrown away, not even hopes, because we rebuilt the viaduct, the Ponte San Giorgio, and we rebuilt the project, and then we create a project even bigger with a circular desk renew in another space of the area, with the purpose to provide an initial assessment and for possible research and development and open innovation activities related to waste production and processing the waste in the context of circular processes. So I want to show you some example of our events during 2023 that was at a suburban level with very nice engagement of all the people of the suburb of Genova. This was a fashion event, and it was a contest with food together with some schools of Genova. These are some examples and photos of the events. This was the C contest, the circular and sustainable cooking and cocktails at the Bergese High School. That is a school for tourism and accommodation industries. And this was during the Ocean Race Grand Finale that was held here in Genova in June. And in each suburb, everybody was involved to create a letter for the symbol of Ocean Race, to create the Ocean Race with some little pieces of waste, and to recreate a very nice claim in the stand. I don't want to annoy you with the spin-offs of the project that are multiples, and you can really read of your own. But what the city was aiming is to the growth of the municipal body capacity to promote innovative processes and foster a growth in the application of multi-sectoral circular economy solution, the strengthening of city communities subject to new marginalization because of the stress caused by the coronavirus, unfortunately, and the strengthening of responsible consumption policies combined with neighboring and territorial action, with the genesis of dynamic circular economy leading to the re-engineering of linear economy processes through a lot of action that you can really read right here without me annoying you. Thank you for your attention, and I'm available for every question.
Claudia, thank you very much. And yes, sorry to try and pack so much into such a short period of time. We can see how much work there is happening in Genoa and some of the very creative and innovative approaches that you're taking. And well, of course, we'll share that so people can read it in a bit more time, or ask you any questions about this, because it seems like there's a lot that other cities could learn about how you are approaching this topic and the type of support that you are providing. I think very interesting, and also good to see the strategy under development, and we look forward to seeing that once it's published as well.
Thank you so much.
Great. Okay. So without further ado, let's move across to the far southwest of Europe. Manuel, I think you are with us. So let's move across to Porto.
Can you listen to me?
We can hear you. Yeah. Would you like to share your screen?
Definitely. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So thank you. Thank you to ICLEI for inviting Porto Municipality. I'm Manuel Semedo, and I'll be together with João Botelho presenting the Reboot project. So first of all, Porto published its circular roadmap for 2030. It was in the year of 2017, and these are all the several areas that were reflected on this circular roadmap, and which the municipality and the city aims to invest, to tackle problems regarding all these areas. And the Reboot project, it's under the repair and reuse topic, and it's a project to repair, recover, and share electronic equipment, mainly IT, computers and monitors. So Reboot was planned and was idealized during the COVID-19 pandemic. Its aim is to reduce consumption of IT equipment by refurbishing it. So to increase circularity in the city, the aim is to collect out-of-use equipment, repair them, and share them with the social entities that need this type of equipment. So I'll be presenting the Reboot model, which is it's not a business model, but it's how the flows and how it works. And then João will present the Recycle Geeks, which I'll explain in a bit. So this is the model of Reboot. So together with waste management companies, we collect out-of-use equipments from citizens or from private companies or public entities. Then all these equipments go to the Reboot training sessions where professionals, students, citizens, the training sessions are free and open. They have a maximum capacity of 12 people, and they last for 6 hours, split in 2 events of 3 hours each. So everyone can join. They don't need any previous experience. They just go, and Recycle Geeks is a startup from Porto that we hired their services to help us in the training sessions, and also to supply us with reused components. So besides we are repairing computers, we are reusing components from other computers. That is the business model of Recycle Geeks, and João will explain it right after me. And in the end, we repair the computers and monitors. We are talking about computers and monitors, obviously, desktops and laptops. They will be delivered to the social institutions of the city that have projects that need to upgrade their equipment. So I'll pass to João to explain how Recycle Geeks work.
Thanks, Manuel, and thanks everyone for having me. I'm the co-founder of Recycle Geeks, and we also have started during the pandemic. I was not in the background of technology, but I was noticing that it was very common for households and offices to give away or send to waste computers that were not fully waste, that had several components that were still good. So we've set up Recycle Geeks to collect as donations those computers that were being thrown away for any reason. Say a laptop had a broken screen and the owner didn't want to repair it. We would collect these computers, we would take away the parts that were still good or repair them at our own cost and sell them in the market. We would sell repaired computers or the components to repair them themselves. And the money we would collect from those sales, we would share with the donor up to 66% of the profit. So the logic was a third of the profit goes for Recycle Geeks, then a third goes to the donor, and a third goes for charity. And this was made to encourage that people would actually donate, because often people keep these computers because they might still be useful in the future. Then they get to a point that they want to give it away, but it's not trash. They try to sell it, but they don't find the right price. And by claiming that we will give it to charity, claiming and actually giving it to charity, we encourage people to feel confident about giving away the computers, knowing that it will not be fully wasted. And what we can see on the next screen is actually the how it's working out. So we've pitched our idea on the Climate Launchpad, and we were in first place in 2021. That's part of what opened the door to several collaborations, like the one we have with the municipality of Porto. And we've received more than 1,300 donations from 85 different donors. So we're still a very small scale. But the good news is that more than half of the items we've actually received, we were able to resell them. And from those sales, we managed to share more than 5,600 euros with charity. I'm very aware this is still a very micro impact, but this can be scaled and can be scaled for more than just electronics. And we see that customers like the ability to have a good price quality ratio, and that's something we're contributing to the Reboot program as well, that we provide parts that because they're used, they have a better price. They also like the fact that they know the items, the spare parts are not coming from far away, and this will fuel the greater good by providing part of the profit for charity. Okay. Yeah, that was it from my side.
Thank you, João. So from the municipality side, so the lessons learned from this project is that we understood that the waste management in practice, the way that people handle waste, it's a problem regarding repairing, because sometimes the items are thrown away or just put on the same truck together with everything, so they tend to deteriorate even more. And this is something that the collaboration with the Recycle Geeks and in this project shows that we can improve city services regarding these aspects. So we also understood that there is a great public acceptance to this project, either by people going to the training sessions, or the social media and the media that it's getting a lot of attention. And also companies find a solution in Reboot. Usually companies don't know what to do with their waste. They also know that it has some value, but not the value to them. So it's also kind of like, I don't want to throw it away, but I don't want to keep it. And Reboot and this type of projects, it is definitely a solution. So regarding the public authorities' role, I believe the first one is the direct investment in pilots in these type of projects. Get the circular businesses, get these startups, integrate them in projects or make pilots with them and invest directly on their services, so they can also gain visibility and most important, recognition. João shared something that was to be next to the city. It gives a lot of credibility to Recycle Geeks, to what they are doing, how their business model works, and its impacts. So this is an important factor that cities often don't see it, don't recognize it, but companies and startups do. It's a way to support them, even to pitch more, to show how they are going in their ladder of escalating. And to integrate innovators in city services. So there is a possibility for new city services or better city services to bring these companies, to make them, to give them space, money, or give them the tools that municipality have. For example, the waste management, it is a municipality competence. and these can be integrated with these startups and these new circular business models. So just finally to share some possible next steps. Were ideas that were shared during the Reboot project. One is to create repair tickets for citizens. For example, the municipality can pay for, give a repair ticket so citizens can repair instead of buying new computers or to upgrade them. And this can be done through the city card, for example. Porto has the Porto city card. The other one is an electronic material bank. So to create a place where people go and they just know that there are parts, there are different kinds of components that they can trade, share, use for free, and free training sessions on IT repair. This is a topic that we feel that everyone is, or a lot of people is getting interested. And once they come to the training sessions, they always ask, when is the next one? Where can I do this more often? So this can be the new thing. So João, I don't know if you want to add something.
I don't know if we have time, so
okay.
Yeah.
So
thanks for the opportunity.
So thank you again.
Fantastic. Yeah, and once again, sorry to rush both of you, Manuel and João. That was a very inspiring example, exactly as it's been proclaimed in the comments here, of an extremely innovative, interesting, and sound business model, and how a local government can help to support that. And I'm sure there might be other signatories interested in setting up similar arrangements as well. There's useful information being placed in the chat. There's a case study that EMF has prepared about this project as well to learn out more there. There's also an interesting question from Sonia from Zurich that I can see that João has already answered on the warranty aspect here, which of course is often an important one in this field. But thank you very much for the example that you've shared. Okay, and now we move on to our final presentation. I'm going to ask Julie from Mechelen to share her screen, which she's already done. Julie, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm not going into detail on the city itself, but just very short. Mechelen is a medium-sized city in Flanders with some 87,000 inhabitants, rather young and diverse population, and growing number of businesses, especially startups and innovative businesses. And more importantly to this webinar is that our board of aldermen and mayor has adopted the Circular City strategy in 2020, which is the 5th pillar of the climate action plan and anchored in the multi-year program. So due to the focus on stimulating innovative entrepreneurship in this legislation. While our circular strategy is focused on specific sectors or value change in which we can make the most impact, it's also like ReLondon. We did a study and saw which sectors are most importantly to us when transitioning to a circular economic model. Actually, there's a transversal way of working throughout these different sectors, a kind of backbone of the city's circular economy work, which involves multi-stakeholder engagement, quintuple helix-wise, and also a close collaboration with the private sector, both companies and NGOs, knowledge institutions, and so on. And that has been piloted or started actually in 2021, thanks to an European Social Fund funding for circular hubs in Flanders. This call, or the goal of this circular hubs call, was to make citizens and companies in Flanders more aware of the potential of the circular economy, to boost new circular initiatives really with social impact on the ground, and also diversify jobs for the social economy thanks to circular activities. And in response to this call, the city of Mechelen started a partnership on the local level with a research group from the University College Thomas More, with a social economy company, Ecoso, with a network organization for entrepreneurs called Unizo, and a business consultant who is specialized in guiding businesses to the circular economy transition. Now, why did we partner with these people? Our shared vision was that we wanted to set up a service model for business support, a kind of one-stop shop for entrepreneurs and NGOs who wanted to work on social circular initiatives. It's a kind of incubation and acceleration program, and where we also, for regular business, but also involving social economy for repetitive tasks such as logistics or cleaning, remanufacturing tasks that a company wants to outsource. So our focus and initial vision was based on the baseline study that the city has executed at the end of 2020 in collaboration with the Thomas More University College, in which we explored what the knowledge and perception is amongst companies and entrepreneurs regarding circular economy in our region. Which kind of drivers and challenges the entrepreneurs face in putting up circular economy business models, and which strategies they implement. For instance, design for disassembly, or all the strategies that the first speaker from Ellen MacArthur has showed. We also asked what kind of support entrepreneurs need in order to put up circular economy business models. And that was like the basis for our partnership and the model that we made together with the partners in order to build ecosystems and foster real change among the value chains. So what did we then start in 2021? We started a kind of counter or a desk, as Lamia called it, for circular economy, where organizations and entrepreneurs can come to have, they can come to have a talk with us and ask all of their questions on their circular businesses or circular ideas. Now, this counter, if you compare it to ReLondon, the difference is that this counter is manned or actually womaned by the city, by my colleague Daphne, who does the intake conversations with the entrepreneurs and the NGOs. And according to the needs of the entrepreneurs that she hears, she's calling in different experts of our partnership. So on the next slide, I listed what the focus is of these different partners in the partnership. Thomas More is involved when an entrepreneur, for instance, wants to do a survey to explore willingness to pay or consumer acceptation more generally for the new circular product or service. Thomas More is also helping in writing projects for funding subsidies for larger projects. The social economy company has a long-term expertise in putting up circular initiatives and blended business models, so working together with private sector, with regular businesses on innovative cases, such as the food distribution platform that they run, second-hand shops, which is really known, but also bicycle repair, wood reclamation. They opened a shop for circular construction wood. Unizo, the network for entrepreneurs, is more the expert on business modeling, financial prospects. Switchers is a strategic development or orientation of businesses in view of the green transition, really focused on what kind of vision do they need and how do they communicate within the business to their employees when they want to make the transition. Then we also collaborate with the impact investors for funding, of course, and they also have an advisory board. So we help entrepreneurs to go to pitch for impact investors. And the role of the city itself is much more the matchmaking role, the community building. And we also have a way to communicate or to put up exposure of the different circular initiatives to the broad public. And we also have a call for participants, a seed funding stream. And I'm coming back to this in the lessons learned, but I think we have a neutral role as a city to look for the right expertise for the needs. And we can also, the big advantage is that we can also link it to the city's procurement or asset management. So we have a lever of if a specific service is set up, for instance, like the reboot, then we can see whether this is also valid for our own way that we use equipment, IT equipment within the city. So we also have a way to really go from the pilot to the systemic level. Then we have some new partners that we are talking with for the next period of time. Like 28 Grond is an NGO that has a circular cafe every month, and a location, a circular city lab, where they have a biolab and a fab lab, and it's really like location to test if some of the initiatives want to test or make something, a minimum viable product. And the province, who is involved because they have the supra-local level. There are different hubs in Flanders and in the province, and we can exchange among these different hubs in view of smart specialization in the future, I hope. So we reach out to everyone by a yearly call. Close the loop is the translation of Sluit de Cirkel, in which we attract NGOs and entrepreneurs to help them to go from an idea to the startup, to the pilot or the minimum viable product. This is like a kind of incubation program, again, with all of the experts that I have listed, because we also provide further support to those who already started, which is also, for instance, the wood reclamation shop. How can they enlarge their impact? And then we are looking at can they transform the business model really to go to a business-to-business model in view of changing the whole construction sector. After the funding of ESF, which was from mid-2021 to 2022, 1 year and a half, the Flemish government decided to keep on funding the circular hubs in Flanders for an extra year in 2023. The funding then came from the Department of Work and Social Employment and Circular Flanders. And with that funding in this year, in Mechelen, we have set up at least 24 new circular initiatives with social impact in fashion, food, agriculture, retail sector, in refurbishment of batteries from e-bikes to the development of a B2B platform for companies that link repair services to assets from a company in view of life extension of these assets, but also in view of ESG reporting for the companies. This is what we did, but for the 12
just quickly, we're running out of time a little bit, so yeah.
I'm going to run directly to the fact that, actually we also collaborate with the Flemish Agency for Innovation and Entrepreneurship in ecosystem pie modeling. So what you see in this picture is just a workshop in which we put contractors, architects, project developers, insurance companies, demolition contractors, waste transporters at the same table and look how we can design the circular wood sector together, because we need nested business models. One entrepreneur cannot do it on their own. The next slide is about the physical locations. So we provide a breeding ground. And the last slide is about the lessons learned. Maybe that's more important. So by creating this one-stop shop for entrepreneurs and NGOs and a community, we are convinced that there's added value in this, but actually all the technical knowledge to develop the circular economy is there, but it's the mind shift and creating the critical mass that needs more attention. And actually the landscape is very dispersed. So if we want to accelerate the transition to a circular economy, we need to collaborate. So we started this collaboration, this partnership and mentorship, but that is not evident. It takes time to get to know the partners. So 1 year and a half of funding was really just to get to know all the expertise that there is among the partners. And luckily it was extended, but it takes at least 2 years, I would say, to get to know the landscape. And then open communication amongst the partners is really needed. Well, of course, you need to protect intellectual property of a company. The role of the neutral matchmaker is crucial in building this community and exchange. After an evaluation among all the partners, we concluded that the desk and the motor needs to stay at the level of the city. This has also to do with funding, because the city invests in personnel that plays this neutral role, and researchers need to be funded through research projects or need to register their project hours, or the network organization of entrepreneurs has also a paid model for business support. So we are the only ones that can provide this matchmaker role on the funding from the city. But also it's more of a neutral role in many different ways. And we, as I said, we have the capacity to link it to real, more impact through our asset management and procurement. Now, while the local level is the right level, according to entrepreneurs, the urban regional context in order to find partners to find location, to get a grasp on what can be done. I think the supra-local or the Flemish level is needed in view of systemic change. So how will this evolve? We look forward to next year, in which we will build a network organization with all of the 15 different circular hubs that there are in Flanders. And lastly, we have last key lesson is that we started with the baseline study in 2020, which we repeated in 2022, and which we will monitor again in 24, each 2 years. So we already see trends in the economic fabric regarding circular strategies that are deployed, and knowledge and perception on circular economy. So because of this monitoring, we can adapt our circular hub services throughout time, which is really necessary in this VUCA environment in which we live and work, and because circular economy transition is indeed slowly but surely developing. To end on a positive note, that it's very clear in the survey that we did in Mechelen.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Julian. Once again, sorry to rush so much information in there. I'm seeing there's some good networking happening already in the chat, some connections being made. There's obviously a lot of overlap with the program in London, for example, the ReLondon is investigating. So seeing how you are structuring those programs, who is involved, what the activities are, the funding basis for it, of course, extremely interesting. If you have any further information to share in English beyond the presentation that we have, this would be really helpful as well. And of course, we can put that in the minutes to this discussion. But an excellent example, really encouraging to see. Okay, so thank you very much for all the presenters here. There's been some really good input made, and now we would like to move across to 3 breakout sessions. We're a little bit over time, unfortunately, as is usual here, so I hope people can stay around a little bit beyond 3:30. I'd like to give 20 minutes across to discussion in these breakout rooms. You will have a choice shortly to join 3 different breakout rooms. One is looking specifically at providing a physical space. The second one is focused on financial incentives and political support. The final one is looking at partnering and capacity building at the local level. So, and Josh is suggesting that the first one is not just looking at physical spaces, but other sorts of spaces as well. So providing some form of spaces for collaboration and for businesses here. So you have the choice now to join 3 of these. We will give you 20 minutes. So if everybody could come back here at exactly past, and then we will find an opportunity to wrap up. I would like to have a different city representative, ideally, from each of the breakout rooms to then come back and report to us, but that can be organized within the breakout rooms. So please choose a breakout room now. There should be a figure at the bottom of your screen, 4 boxes that allow you to choose which one of these that you can join. It says breakout rooms, so please go ahead. Great, I can see lots of smiling faces. Obviously, there have been good discussions taking place in each of these breakout rooms. It's good to see. Welcome back, everybody. And it's good to see that most people are still with us as well, even though we've gone slightly over time with this. But let's keep this quite short. So it would be very helpful if we could have quick wrap-ups from each of the breakout rooms. Hopefully someone has been nominated just to a little bit about what you discussed. So let's first of all move across to group 1, the one looking specifically at providing a space. Who would like to report back from this group?
I will. So we had quite a lot of different representatives from cities of different sizes. And the point we kind of got to at the end was it's really important to have lots of different type of spaces. And there's not one that's going to suit every purpose that you need. So we were saying that really small local spaces are important all across your city or municipality for convenience of residents. They don't want to travel an hour to get something fixed if they can just order a new one online in 5 minutes. And also that visibility in the community is really, really important. But it's also really important to have a large central location where lots of businesses can come and meet with each other, because for the business, that's more convenient. They don't want to have to travel an hour in one direction to collect a resource, maybe a waste from another business, and then take their waste an hour in the opposite direction for another business to use. And also it's really political to have a central kind of large space, because it can inspire further action when you can really show something that's really incredible and visionary and what the future is. It's really important for us anyway, for our politicians to see that and see what the future is. And we also talked about the importance of digital spaces as well, and networks being spaces where people can share different information, learn from one another. And so the conclusion was there's not one size fits all, and we actually need loads of different possibilities and options for people.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Talia. And welcome to the CCD community as well. Great to have Newham with us in these conversations too. Great, thanks for that. Let's move across then to working group 2, or to breakout room 2, looking specifically at the financial incentives and political support. Who has volunteered to report back from this group?
I think I can pick it up. So in our room, we had Porto and we had EIB. And so regarding political support, so both Porto and Recycle Geeks mentioned that having the municipality as a partner really helped in being trusted by citizens, especially regarding these, let's say, business models, new business models focused around repair. And for the financial part, the financial incentives part, the biggest challenges were around going to the conventional banking, for example, that how the companies had well, you know, they did, being startups, they didn't have like loads of business records and tracks behind them. It was difficult to make the case for getting financial help from banks. Maybe something that I don't know, EIB or Porto want to elaborate on that.
We covered that whilst there's a lot of difficulty on accessing financing at the beginning, there are reimbursable grants, but those will depend on the financial capacity of the founders. And we've discussed with the EIB that the EIB is more focused on loans, but one possibility or one thing to explore could be some kind of guarantees from the local governments that could help leveraging the amount of loans that could be provided to these local initiatives that focus on circular results.
Really interesting idea. Excellent. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Nestor. Thank you, João. Okay. Let's move across then to group 3, looking specifically at partnering and capacity building. Who is reporting back from this group?
Yes, that's my honor.
Elmar, go ahead.
Hi. Well, just some reflections. We talked about, of course, the need to activate smaller and specifically bigger companies. Bigger companies follow their own logic. They are located in a certain city, in a local context, in a region, but at the same time, they are less attached to it because they follow sometimes global economic rules, and they have their own lobbying machine towards political levels. So we talked about the need, indeed, to have them on board in a region or a city, but at the same time, the difficulty of having them joining round tables and so forth. We've seen it happening also in the example of Leuven, and also in the metropolitan region of Amsterdam, where there is significant effort being done to really act as an economic region together with different parties, smaller and bigger companies. There is, in general, more willingness from the smaller, younger entrepreneurs, smaller companies that are really agile, who are willing to build capacity, who are starting with their new products or processes. That's been acknowledged in Roskilde and Mechelen as well. But in the end, you have to put them together, and maybe a regional identity can play a role. In the end, you make yourself as a company, you will be more resilient if you can anchor yourself in the region, because you're dependent on local skilled workforce. You can make connections with different companies that can provide you new business ideas. So the circular economy really provides this opportunity. And there was one interesting question that we didn't come to discuss, and that's the fact, can you institutionalize, or should you institutionalize a platform or a group of like-minded, connected people and businesses in a region or not? And I think there are some really good examples and also different examples of institutionalized platforms, but also those that are less institutionalized and just voluntary, ad hoc forms of collaboration are also available, those examples. So that's an interesting question to talk about. Do you need to really have a buy-in, a signed document? Do you want to have a board of directors and so forth? Or is it just a voluntary gathering of like-minded businesses?
Great.
I hope
Thanks.
this covers the discussion.
Lots of nodding, it seems so, but yes. So thanks very much for those very interesting reflections, insights, and unanswered questions still, of course. And I think it once again, re-emphasizes the fact that there isn't obviously going to be a single pattern represented in each of the different European cities about how we're going to do this, but a multitude of different approaches. Really interesting discussions. Thanks for that. So just before we wrap up, I want to share one or two upcoming activities as well. And the first of those links directly to this point. Now, these webinars are only ever going to be able to scratch the surface of topics which, of course, are very big. So what they hopefully also will do is inspire you to get in touch with others. So those of the presentations that you've heard here, for example, today. What we have is a shared contacts file. I've got the link in this slide. I guess you can't click on it now, but we will share all of this. We have a shared open contacts file that is open only to the signatories of the declaration plus the support partners. So you can, through that, get in touch with each other and dig deeper into any of the examples that you have heard. So please do so. One or two other upcoming activities. I've mentioned already the CCD report with the planned publication in February. To keep that in mind, we will organize our next webinar sometime in spring. Date is not fixed yet. And just as with this webinar, we will determine the subject by an email poll, which we'll send around with the minutes of this meeting as well. We plan to organize 3 webinars over the course of next year, which again will be a mixture of experience exchange from signatories and information presented by the support partners as well. Our next CCD newsletter will come out in March next year, and that will be an opportunity for each of you to present latest information on what you're doing and also any opportunities that you want to present there as well, so keep that in mind. We also have 2 events that are going to come up next year, or at least hopefully, that maybe you'd like to be involved in. The first of those is the Waste Management Europe conference happening in Bergamo in April, and we're looking to organize a panel session with signatories there. Topic yet to be determined, but it's a very interesting event to participate in. And secondly, alongside the World Circular Economy Forum, which is happening in Brussels this year, we're likely to have an online accelerator event looking explicitly at the results of the CCD report. So again, there should be an opportunity there for signatories to present their information. Okay, so now we have run well over time, unfortunately. So I think we can call a day to proceedings today, but let me, before we do so, say thank you very much to our 6 presenters today. Thank you very much for the active involvement in the chat and also in the breakout rooms. Apologies for the lack of time, very big topic, but I hope everybody has at least got some inspiration from what we presented today. And as mentioned, we will share all of the minutes, all of the resources that have been mentioned in a common file that we will circulate to all participants today. So thank you very much and have a nice evening.